Hey everyone, I'm here today to take a look at the Valaverse Condor figure from Action Force.
Action Force was there. Action Force!
Action Force was basically kind of a British version of G.I. Joe. Instead of a real American hero, they were international heroes. There's a long history to it. If you want to know more, go to Analog Toys. He's done some great videos about the history of Action Force. But we're finally seeing a revival of Action Force. It's all new characters, but it's still the Action Force brand, and there's some really fantastic military figures in this line. It's 6-inch scale, so they do match up with G.I. Joe classifieds if you want to mix and match them. Now, to go over articulation quickly, it's pretty much standard what you'd expect from a 6-inch figure. You've got swivels at the top of the bicep there. The arms also go out on a ball joint there, double joints at the elbows, wrist swivel and pivot. And one thing I like about these is that there's extra hands with this, and depending on the pose of the hand, the sculpt of the hand, they swivel in different ways, which is really handy. And it's something that Hasbro sometimes gets wrong. I'll go into it more later, but you see them all double joints there, double jointed knees. You've got a swivel at the top of the boot cut there. Ankles pivot, move back and forward. Got the drop leg at the groin there. It's kind of a joint that drops down, which a lot of action figures have now. So it's easier to kind of get them in sitting poses and such. Legs go out to the side and everything. There's also an ab crunch underneath the armour, but when you've got the armour on, it does hinder that a little bit. It still moves slightly. You can get it to pivot forward and back a bit. You see he's leaning back quite a bit there with the armour on still. It does lean forward a little bit. And then at the neck, it's a ball jointed head. And one thing I really like about this figure is that it doesn't have the double neck joint. A lot of Hasbro figures now have a joint at the bottom of the neck where it connects to the shoulders and top of the chest, as well as at the top of the neck where it connects to the head. And I hate that. I have yet to find the point of it. It doesn't help at all in posing the figures. It just means that when you move the head, the whole neck swivels round. It breaks up the sculpt of the neck, so you end up having the Adam's apple facing to the side or backwards, and it's really awkward to then reposition the neck. And in some cases, it makes the neck look too long as well. Perfect examples of that are the classified movie Snake Eyes, Baroness and Storm Shadow, especially when you put Storm Shadow's human head on. Him and the Baroness's necks look ridiculously too long because of this pointless added articulation at the bottom of the neck. So I'm really glad that these figures don't have that, and I'm hoping they don't add that as the toy line continues, because it's completely unnecessary in my opinion. Just as an example of it, Duke has it here. So you can see his neck looks a bit long. It's not as bad as some of the figures, but I still really don't like it, and if you move the head around, it can end up moving that bit at the bottom there, so the Adam's apple ends up kind of to the side, and it just looks weird to me. I just don't see the point in it. It's just a nuisance, really. I think sometimes you can have a bit too much articulation on these figures. Now for accessories, to start with, we get a figure stand, which has this metal grating effect with Action Force written in it. And there's also a slit at the back there where you can cut out the bio card from the back of the action figures box and slip in there. So if you've got the figure on display on the stand, you can then have his bio card kind of behind him in that slit there, which is a nice addition. Though I will say the pegs are a bit too thick. I have quite a bit of trouble getting those pegs into the holes on the bottom of the feet. The holes are a bit too small, pegs are a bit too thick. So I may need to actually kind of sand out those holes slightly. But the stand has 4 pegs on it, so you've got a variety of different positions you can stand the figure in. He also comes with an extra head, which has like a balaclava on it, and you get 8 sets of hands. 2 that are in a trigger finger like that, 2 that are a regular grip like that, 2 fists, and then 2 hands that are open palmed. And this really helps with holding various different weapons, because some weapons have a handle at the front, so you'd want an extra hand like that as well as the trigger finger, and some weapons you would have it leaning on his hand open palmed like that. And depending on the hand, the articulation is different. Most of them have it swiveling from side to side, but the trigger finger hand has the swivel going up and down, which is really useful for getting some good poses of the figure holding the weapon. Hasbro have a tendency to put the articulation point in the wrong way. The Ghostbusters Plasma series were a perfect example of that, where they could have done with a articulation point like this hand has, where they hold the proton wand, but instead it would go from side to side like that, and it makes it really difficult to get the Ghostbusters to hold the proton wand pointing forward. It also comes with an FN Scar rifle, and this is the gun that Duke and Flint used in G.I. Joe Retaliation. This figure also wears the same armour as Duke and Flint wore in Retaliation as well, so I don't know if that's deliberate or not, but I thought it was a nice kind of connection to G.I. Joe and the movies, and I always liked that combination of that armour and that gun. I just think they work well together and it's a cool look. It comes with 3 magazines for the gun, which are removable, and the 2 spare magazines go into pouches on his armour. He also has a pistol that goes into a drop leg holster, and on the other side a molly pouch for like a first aid kit or whatever would go in there. And then on the back of the figure we have a kind of Kydex style sheath with a knife in it. That knife does fall out pretty easily, so I'm a bit worried about losing it out here. It's fallen out a couple of times. But all these weapons are real weapons, so this is a real knife, though I haven't been able to find exactly what brand of knife that is, but that will be a real knife, and that slips in there. It does hold in with friction, it's not like it falls out too easily, but if you're messing around with the figure it does knock out quite easily, if you see what I mean. Like, it's not going to fall out if I just hold it upside down like that, so there is friction holding it in there. There's his pistol, really nice looking gun there, and then on the other side we have his knife. He's holding in that regular grip hand. When I try and get closer it gets a bit blurry, but hopefully you can see how nice the detailing is on the knife there and on the gun. And with this gun and the rifle there's a hole in the front that you can put blast effects in that come with the weapons packs. So he is with one of the blast effects, which looks really cool there, and there are different size ones for different size weapons basically. And as well as the armour being removable, you've also got this helmet which is removable. And as well as the helmet itself being removable, the ear protectors will come off. They just clip on and off, depending on if you want them on or not. And then he's got these scopes as well, which you can either completely remove if you want. You can have them folded up like that, or you can have them down like that to go over his eyes. Some really awesome detailing on this figure. You've got the British flag on one side of his chest and the Action Force logo on the other, and then going down the armour you've got all these different pouches sculpted in. You've got the 2 pouches with the removable magazines that will go in the gun. Then you've got 2 glow sticks that are sculpted in there. I love that little detail. You've got a blade in another Kydex sheath there. It's not removable, it's just sculpted in because it'd be very tiny, so I have no problem with that just being sculpted on there. Then on his wrists he's got a watch on this wrist sculpted on, which is facing, he's got the clock face facing inwards, and on this side there's what looks to me like a paracord bracelet. Maybe it's not, maybe it's supposed to be something else, but it looks very much to me like a paracord bracelet. And I love that they've put little details like that on these figures, the glow sticks, the paracord bracelet. There's a figure coming in wave 2 that has a Leatherman style multi-tool sculpted into his belt. Just little details like that make these figures seem so much more realistic, and I've always liked the more realistic aspect of G.I. Joe. I've never liked it when it's gone a bit too sci-fi or nerfy, as some of the earlier classified figures did. Just to go over some of the sculpt, you've got the boots with all the clips, and all the clips and everything are painted on this. Every detail is painted, and in the UK these cost about a tenner more than the G.I. Joe classifieds, but you can see where the money goes because there's so much more paint detail on the figure. He's got pouches on the side of his arms there. Great face sculpt as well. This is a really gorgeous figure. Then there's a hole on the back there where you can put rucksacks, backpacks that came in extra accessory packs, which I wish I'd gotten now. And it's compatible with G.I. Joe as well. All the holes and ports and things are the same size as most G.I. Joe classified, so you can mix and match. And here he is on the classified's ram cycle. He fits on there perfectly. The only issue is once again, the holes in his feet are a bit too small for the pegs, so I couldn't get his feet to go on the pegs on the ram cycle there. Much like I have trouble getting them onto the figure stand that comes with him. So they could do with being filed out a little bit. It doesn't actually bother me because I never use figure stands. I only use it out here because it makes it easier to stand the figure up on the lumpy ground. But for other people that might be an issue. The joints can also be a little bit stiff. It's okay at home where it's warmer, but because it's chilly out here today, the joints have become a lot stiffer on the figure as well. But he looks pretty good on the ram cycle there. Now for a comparison, here's the G.I. Joe Retaliation Flint, and you can see he's got that Scar rifle there, as well as the same style body armour. So you can see there it's a very similar style body armour with the plating and the pouches at the bottom for magazines and that. So I do like this little callback to Retaliation, whether it's deliberate or not. And here's Condor with Duke, and you can see the Action Force figures are slightly taller than G.I. Joe Classifieds, which doesn't bother me because people are different heights anyway, so it adds a bit of variety to the line. I have given Duke one of the Action Force guns because Duke came with this sort of nerfy laser gun looking thing, which I really don't like. It feels a lot more complete now, as do a lot of my G.I. Joe Classifieds, now that I've been able to arm them up with some proper guns from the Action Force accessory packs. Here's a quick look at the packaging compared to a Classifieds box. On the back you've got pictures of all the other figures in the wave, and it's very similar to the packaging style of the classic G.I. Joe Action Force figures, where they'd have all the different characters on the back there with that kind of orange explosion backdrop, and then at the bottom there you've got the file card giving us a really in-depth look at the background of the character. And there's also an action points thing there you can cut out for future promotions. Then on the side of the box you've got a nice picture of the character as well, very similar to the Classifieds packaging. Then on the other side it just says Action Force. You can see this packaging is thicker than the Classifieds, but that's because there's more accessories in there. So that's my look at Condor from the Valaverse Action Force toy line. Really fantastic figure. These had to be pre-ordered, so they're going to be pretty hard to get hold of now, unfortunately. I'm hoping that Valaverse will do a second run of Wave 1 at some point, because I only bought Condor and one of the weapons packs, and I really wish I'd bought more of them now, because they're fantastic figures. Especially in the UK, they're pretty hard to get hold of. But the weapons packs really make the G.I. Joe Classifieds a lot better. They improve those figures just by giving them proper guns. Makes such a difference in my opinion. And the Action Force figures themselves are fantastic. I don't think Bobby Vala has the rights to do any of the classic Action Force characters, so he probably won't see the Red Shadows or anything like that, which is a shame because I love the Red Shadow designs, and it's not like Hasbro ever does anything with them. I think they were in a comic once about 10 years ago and that's it. So it is a real shame that we're probably not going to get any Red Shadows from G.I. Joe Classifieds either anytime soon. But these figures are still great. Nice seeing the UK version of G.I. Joe get some attention finally after so many years being dormant. I've always loved Action Force. So this is a great comeback. It's fantastic having 6-inch figures for Action Force. One character I would love to see, probably never going to happen, but I would love to see Combat Colin in the Action Force toy line. Combat Colin was a character in the sort of comedic backup strip in the old UK Action Force comics. And he was always trying to join Action Force, but they kept rejecting him. So I would just love to have a Combat Colin figure, because I was always a fan of the character in the comic strips, and I've always wanted an action figure of Combat Colin. And I don't think Hasbro own the rights to him, or Marvel. I think Lou Stringer, the creator of Combat Colin, actually owns the rights. So Bobby Vala could make a deal with Lou Stringer. I don't think he will. I don't think there's going to be enough of a market for a Combat Colin figure. But personally, I would absolutely love it. Well, thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you in the next video. Full force!
Action Force International Hero.